Okay, so the other day I posted a video about a possible Twisted Metal 1 remake, and I got a lot of positive feedback on that. Now, the hot topic on a Twisted Metal 1 remake is, what kind of cars would they use in the remake? Now, a lot of people have come up with their own ideas as to what it could be. So, after much deliberation, I myself have come up with car ideas I like to see in the Twisted Metal 1 remake. But it wasn't easy. You see, I found out you could either have the cars look exactly like they did in the game, or as close as you could get it, or two, just barely enough so that you know the car and the character. So, having said that, I've decided to make this kind of a two-part video. In this video, I'll talk about the cars that be an exact match. And in the next video, I'll give ideas of cars that aren't really an exact match, but it's like just enough so that you know who they are. Now I'm going to start off this list with my favorite character, of course, and that would be Yellow Jacket. Now, in the game, Yellow Jacket looks like just a generic cartoon taxi. However, I noticed that Yellow Jacket, the original Yellow Jacket, seems to bear a striking resemblance to the checkered cabs of the 1980s. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what it's based off of. So for Yellow Jacket, go with the checkered cab. Next up, we have Sweet Tooth. In the game, Sweet Tooth drove a pretty generic looking ice cream van. It was big and just crazy looking. So you're probably wondering, what kind of real life vehicle could you suggest for Sweet Tooth? Well, I could only think of one. The Grumman delivery van. Now, I realize a lot of people probably have no idea what a Grumman is. Basically, it's those big delivery vans you see on an everyday basis. They're usually owned by companies like the Post Office, FedEx, UPS, that kind of thing. However, more often than not, they get converted into ice cream vans. So, for Sweet Tooth, go with a Grumman. Okay, next up is Outlaw. Now, in the game, Outlaw was a pretty boxy looking police car. So for him, this one was actually kind of easy. So for Outlaw, I suggest the Ford LTD. Okay, now we have Thumper. For the most part, Thumper is a lowrider and most likely based off a '64 Impala. So you know what? Why change that? So I say, go with the '64 Impala look. Now we have Spectra. Now Spectra is also an easy car to figure out. It's pretty obvious it's based off like a '64 Corvette. So, again, just keep it the same. A '64 Corvette. Now there's a little matter of Warthog. Actually, I think we all know what Warthog should be. Next up, we have Crimson Fury. Now, as Thrasher the Black Stang pointed out, just about any kind of exotic sports car could be used for Crimson Fury. And I agree. However, for the purpose of this video, I'm trying to find an exact match. And the only thing I could think of that comes close is the Lamborghini Coutanche. Man, I hope I said that right. Next up, we have Hammerhead. Now, in the case of Hammerhead, you could probably take any pickup truck, any year, make, or model, and just stick it on there. However, for Hammerhead, I'm going to have to go with a suggestion made by Thrasher, which depicts a big green Dodge Ram as a monster truck. Good job. Next up, we have Roadkill. Now, I'll be honest. Of all the cars in Twisted Metal, Roadkill was probably one of the hardest because, well, he could be anything. However, after giving Roadkill a thorough examination, I concluded that there's only one car it could possibly be based off of, and that would have to be a Monte Carlo from the 1970s. And that would be my choice for Roadkill. Of course, you'd have to give it the Mad Max makeover. Now we have Pit Viper. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyway, for Pit Viper, I only have two little words. Myers Manx. Now, for those of you who have no idea what a Myers Manx is, basically, it's a dune buggy that was made by Volkswagen. Actually, now that I think about it, wasn't a Grasshopper and Head On based off of Myers Manx? Now, for Darkside, I think he should be a Ford Louisville, which is basically a Ford-based semi-truck. Now, the last car we have left is Mr. Grimm. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not really big on motorcycles, but for Mr. Grimm, I'm just going to say a Harley Davidson and be done with it. Anyway, those are my car ideas for a Twisted Metal 1 remake. However, keep in mind, this is only part 1. In part 2, I will go over cars that are not exactly identical to the original. Just barely identical. So, stay tuned.
Hey, can't get out, buddy! It's going down! Holy Toledo!